Hey fellow fishing fanatic, so you finally decided you want to take your bass fishing skills to the next level. You want to enter a bass fishing tournament, but you have no idea how to do that. Well, I've been in your shoes several times and I'm here to help. My name is Wesley Littlefield with Anglers.com, and I actually went to college and fished on the bass fishing team. Now, I wasn't any good at competitive fishing, but I still have a competitive fire to compete, and therefore I enjoy it, so I do it anyways. Though now it's a little bit different than it was in college when I fished. The skills still transfer, and I'll be able to provide you with all the knowledge you're going to need to get started at your first bass fishing tournament. So let's get started. Now, as I mentioned, my first introduction to bass fishing tournaments was actually in college when I was on the bass fishing team, and those were in-person tournaments. Now, this is generally what people have in mind when they think of bass fishing tournaments. So when you watch major bass fishing tournaments like Bassmaster or MLF online or on TV, they're in person, they're all at the same lake, they're all fishing the same day, same conditions, they're all there together in person. And these can range from the big tournaments like we watch on TV to little bitty jackpot tournaments that are on certain days of the week and run out of your local lake. And then of course there's anything in between, from the super amateur all the way up to the professional, everything in between. You can have your weekend tournaments that you can win, a couple $1,000s on, or you can have your local daily jackpots that you win a couple $100 every night. So those are the in-person tournaments. Now, since the recent invention of cell phones and technological advances, we've actually had online fishing tournaments. And I gotta say, these are probably my favorite, because sometimes they stretch for a month at a time. Sometimes it is just you've got one day to do it, and sometimes it's even all year you've got to compete and get the biggest fish. So the online tournaments are usually you download an app. There's one like Tourney X that I primarily use. Fishing Chaos actually has another app that I use a lot, and they'll have a screen listing all the tournaments that are being held that you can enter into, and you just enter your information and your payment details and go fishing. So they'll have all the rules and regulations that you need to follow listed in a PDF or some kind of form that you can download right to your phone, so you know you're obeying the rules. So how the heck do you actually compete in one of these tournaments? Well, generally these are, you measure the length of the fish. Like most kayak tournaments nowadays are measuring the length of the fish. You'll have an approved measuring device, whether that's like a bump board, what they call it. It's just like a tape measure with a nose on it, and so you can't mark on it and make your fish look bigger than they actually are. But as I mentioned, they can be held throughout, a month or a single day. Most kayak tournaments are done this way. It's hard to keep a fish live on a kayak, so they don't have live wells. So you just take pictures of your 5 biggest fish and submit them. Typically the apps have a process that they prefer, whether you take the picture within the app or they have you turn on your location settings and you just take a picture with your phone and then upload it to the app. That kind of depends on the tournament specific and the app as well. But that's generally the online portions. Those are honestly my favorite. I've gotten a lot more involved in online tournaments. I like them because they don't necessarily restrict you to one waterway, or they don't restrict you to one time period. So if you can't make it, this weekend at this time, then you miss out. Like I said, they're generally like a month long, a week long, whatever. You can hit them throughout the days. Now, it does give some people an unfair advantage, especially like down in Florida or Texas or California. They tend to have bigger fish, so people further north have less of a chance of catching those. So generally they do break up into divisions based on regions and everything. So it helps even it out, and the rules are as even and fair as possible, but there's still a little bit of leeway in there. But generally, like I said, I really enjoy this style, this format of fishing. Now the differences between boat tournaments, kayak tournaments, and bank tournaments. So boat tournaments are generally going to be when you've got your big bass boat. Most of the time they are in person 1-2 days a week or whatever, or the bigger ones are, of course, sometimes a week-long event. But generally, boat tournaments are in person. However, I have ran across a few tournaments where they've allowed a boat division online. So if that's something you would be interested in, even though you're a boat angler, don't count yourself out that you can't fish online tournaments, because you can in some cases. So boat tournaments, typically your 5 biggest bass. Now, sometimes it's the 3 biggest on like a jackpot if you're only fishing for a few hours or whatever, but generally you're weighing your 3 to 5 biggest bass, and the winner goes home with a check. And the losers get descending amounts until the money's all out or whatever. And you have to keep the fish alive, and you're not the one who gets to weigh your fish. So you typically bring in your bag of fish, stick them on a scale of somebody else's. They tell you, or that everybody else weighs in on, that way it's even, and then they give you your weight, and if you win, yay. If you don't, you go home sad. Now in kayak tournaments, as I mentioned, they actually go off of the pictures that you send in for the length. And once again, you have to have a certified board, and they make sure that your picture was taken on the correct day and the correct time and at the correct location. Kayak tournaments can be in one central location in person. I think of like a lot of KBF tournaments are ran this way, but KBF also runs a lot of online tournaments that go all month long, and you just fish your state tournament. For example, they do a state tournament series, and it's just you're competing against other people in your state, but you get to go fish whenever you want, and as long as you're fishing on a public water in that state, you're all good. And then of course, bank tournaments. You might be surprised to find that yes, there are tournaments. Typically they're online, but there's like a little local thing that we do at the core pond at my local area lake, but it's on a pond where we let all the kids fish in a tournament, and it's of course all from the bank. It's complete madness and chaos, but that's an in-person event, and they win prizes and cool stuff, bragging rights, and it's a lot of fun. But I've also seen and entered into myself where you can fish from the bank online at any public location, and your 5 longest fish, it's similar to kayaks where you measure the fish. Your 5 longest fish count as a limit, and then wherever you place, you win that amount of money, you win those prizes, whatever it is that they have at that time. Lastly, how the heck do we get started fishing tournaments? And this one is really big for me. I got started because my grandpa got into it a long time ago, even before I was born. He told me stories, it got me interested, and I went on from there. I know a lot of guys either have an uncle that took them, or their dad took them, or their grandpa like me took them fishing, and they just developed a love for competing, had a real competitive fire to go out and prove that they were a good angler. So to get started, my best recommendation is find somebody who already does it. Now, it's not that difficult if you're willing to go out and talk to people. Now, if you're an introvert, this is gonna kill you. But if you're an extrovert like me, hang out around the local fishing dock, hang out around your local boat ramp. You see guys coming in fishing, especially a big, nice, fancy boat. Walk up to them, say, hey, do you fish any tournaments? I'm looking to get started. You can go in as a co-angler on that boat, possibly if they let you, and you learn a lot from them. You don't have as much of an entry fee to cough up. It's a great way to get started, is going in as a co-angler. Or if you've already got your own boat, then just go find out when they meet together and go out and fish. Typically Facebook's a great place to do that. And another one is just simply going and typing in Google bass fishing tournaments near me, and you'll be surprised at how many pop up. I know Bassmaster has all kinds of different divisions, from high school to collegiate to the kayak series to the Bassmaster series. And you go on their website, you find out when a tournament's coming near you, you sign up for it, and you go fish it. Same with MLF, they do a lot of that. KBF the same way. It's all KBF kayak bass fishing, and MLF is Major League Fishing. But it's all generally the same. When just go to their website and look up how to enter. They're all a little bit different, but for the most part, it's the same. The most important part of tournament fishing is to remember to have fun. Now, I'm super competitive and I hate losing, but fishing is supposed to be fun. And so if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. So just remember to have fun. And the last thing I'm gonna leave you with, I promise, is if you're planning on fishing your first tournament, you better have mastered the jig. The jig is the best lure, hands down, period. You ask any angler, they're gonna tell you, learn how to fish a jig. You'll catch more fish, you'll catch better fish with that. I've got a video linked down below me that's gonna teach you how to rig it and a little bit about how to fish it so you can get started using the jig at your first tournament. Until then, I want you to always remember that education is important, but fishing is essential.